Good evening, and welcome to the third of the Bar Cart Co-op special events for 2022. Before we get too far into the show, I want to extend our prayers and thoughts to the friends that we've got and loved ones we have in Florida that are dealing with Hurricane Ian right now. And over the next few days, we just pray for their safety and that everyone comes out of that well. Well, my name is Kevin Rose, and I'm your tour guide for this evening. I don't know if that makes me more Julie from the Love Boat or maybe Mr. Rourke from Fantasy Island. And I think you can probably tell what my family watched on Sunday nights when I was growing up. But anyway, in the whiskey world of things, I do some writing on my Bourbon Fellowship blog, and I host a show called Bourbon Turntable with Drew Crawley. It's a show where we blend the love of music with the love of whiskey. Now, in the first quarter of this year, Alan Bishop and I hosted a show with Todd Leopold and Adam Stump. We called that A Tale of Two Stills. We talked about the historic significance of the stills that both Adam and Todd use at their distilleries every day. If you missed that show, it is available on the Bar Cart YouTube page. Then the second quarter, we did a show on non-traditional grains in whiskey, where we had Don Poffenroth from Dry Fly, who talked about Triticale whiskey, our own Alan Bishop, who talked about his use of buckwheat in a bourbon mash bill, and Chris Koenig from Golden Beaver, who talked about the use of rice in his whiskeys and bourbons. And that was a really good show as well, and also available on our YouTube page. So what is the Bar Cart Co-op? I knew you were asking that, so I've got an answer for you. Bar Cart is a collection of friends with their own independent shows that focus on different aspects of the whiskey industry. We have Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They interview distillers from across the country and around the world to talk about the techniques that they use and the whiskey that they make. And Alan also has a show that he does with his wife, Kim, called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. That's a pretty new show and is just getting some rave reviews out there. My Whiskey Den has a couple of our panelists from tonight that host that show. It airs on Monday nights at 9 o'clock. You'll get to meet Pat and Mike in just a moment. And then I've already mentioned our show, Bourbon Turntable. So if you could, while you're here tonight, subscribe to the YouTube page for Bar Cart or join our Bar Cart Facebook group just to stay in tune with everything else we have going on. So tonight's event puts sweet whiskeys in the spotlight, and the knee-jerk response from a lot of people when I've told them about this event is either A, I had a wheat whiskey once a long time ago and I didn't like it, or B, oh, I like Weller's. So as for answer A, you need to I would encourage you to keep an open mind and don't let a limited sample get in your way of discovering some really great new whiskeys. Because each of these sweet whiskeys tonight that we're going to be tasting, I think are very much worth your time. And if you answered B, that you like Weller's, these are wheat whiskeys, not wheated bourbons. We will not be drinking Weller's or Pappy's tonight. We are on some sort of a show budget. So the goal of the evening is not to have our panelists crown one of these wheat whiskeys the greatest wheat whiskey in the galaxy. We're not even going to try to rank these tonight. But what we want to do is explore this segment of the whiskey market that a lot of people may not be familiar with, but there's a lot of new whiskeys that are coming out that are going to be hitting the shelves that this will give you a sneak preview as to what you can expect. And we'll talk about some of the unique flavor profiles that may be coming out of a mash bill that's 100% wheat. Well, as Marty DeBurgi said, and this is Spinal Tap, enough of my yakking, let's boogie. And by boogie, I mean we're going to introduce our panelists, and then we're going to start drinking some whiskey together. So,
can you even find 11 wheat whiskeys? I'm just saying.
Actually, when I chose the 5, I had sampled a dozen and narrowed it down to the 5. So I went beyond 11. I took it to 12, Alan.
Congratulations. Well played, sir.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
Hey, so
don't try to one-up him.
It may be the only opportunity I ever get in my life. So I had to take it. All right. Well, we'll start ladies first because we're all sophisticated gentlemen here. Yeesh. So, Lisa, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please.
I split my time between New York and Kentucky. I run Widow Jane Distillery and the distiller and the blender and the president and the project manager for the new build. And I am, mostly a mom and a grandmother and, doing a lot of whiskey on the side these days. That's it. That's all I got.
All of that keeps you very busy, right? That keeps
you very
that's
busy.
enough to keep you very, very busy.
Yeah, we were purchased by Heaven Hill in February.
All right,
too,
well, let's go.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's all right.
All right, Mike, let's go to you, buddy.
Okay, well, I'm Mike Lisac. I am part of My Whiskey Den, which is part of Bar Cart Co-op. As Kevin said earlier, we have our shows live on Monday nights where we focus mostly on craft whiskey. Like to do interviews with the people, and our format is having a discussion at a distillery after hours.
Cool. All right, thanks, Mike. Let's go to Steve.
I'm Steve Coomes. I'm a whiskey writer by trade and do a lot of work for Bourbon Plus magazine, the Whiskey Wash, a lot of contract work for distilleries, just non-byline stuff. And just finished with the 2022 Kentucky Bourbon Festival, where I'm the content and programming director, meaning I create all the seminars and interviews and things like that. If anybody went, I hope you liked it. We had a lot of good fun doing it. A lot of long hours, but we think it turned out pretty well.
That's great, Steve. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Patrick, how about you, bud?
Well, I'm Patrick. I'm the other part of My Whiskey Den. Mike covered that pretty well. I think the reason we kind of focused on craft is, one, we think there's some more unique profiles coming out there, or at least there were in the past. Plus, no one needs to see your 740 tooth review of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So there's only so many of those I could handle watching. And so we started focusing on other people who had some interesting projects going on. Not that I don't like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Totally.
I like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, but okay, whatever, Patrick.
I did. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to get in trouble. Might as well start now.
Probably. Alan Bishop, the alchemist.
He also said 740 tooth, if you didn't catch that.
That's all right.
That was in there too.
He's from Wisconsin. Give him some slack.
He learned that reading. Yes.
Hey, they've gone downhill.
So my name's Alan Bishop. I just do stuff, sometimes regrettably, one way or the other. But I am the head alchemist at Spirits of French Lick, and I host Distillers Talk. And if you have Ghosts, you have everything. And the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute channel on YouTube. And occasionally my friends are silly enough to let me on a podcast and allow me to ruin it. So.
And you have a book. You have a book now, right?
I wasn't trying to go into all of that stuff, but sure. Yeah. Buy my book. Yes. At thealchemistcabinet.com/The Warehouse 1. I finally memorized it. See?
All right. So thank you all for being here. I hope you have a good time with this, and it's something that you enjoy. I think that I've had a lot of fun kind of doing some of the background stuff here, and hopefully it all goes well. So we will start with sample A, and let's start with Mike.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Just, you don't have to lead us through the entire tasting. Just initial thoughts on appearance, nose, and then we'll just kind of let it go from there.
I mean, well, this one, appearance-wise, it might be the lightest of them, or maybe B is a little bit lighter than this one in color, but color's not everything, and neither is age.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear that on My Whiskey Den on Monday nights. It smells waxy and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are the first things I get initially off of this one.
Okay. Anybody else?
to me, there's kind of a little bit of a foxy character on the nose on that. Lisa and Steve probably they know that term, but it's usually used to refer to like American wine grapes, but almost like a musky sort of character to it. It's not off-putting to me. It's just initially there's definitely some funk there that doesn't come off as it comes off as almost like brand, but it's not quite. It's not fresh. It doesn't really pop.
It's dusty. Yeah.
There you go. That's a good.
Musky
you
and
guys
dusty.
You guys are digging better than I am. My nose must be adjusting to the allergies here again. I'm just getting high notes of like bubble gum, cotton candy, stuff like that.
I get that too.
Fruity in general.
It's like a really light cooked note to the wheat, like almost like someone like it wasn't like in the beginning of the baking process. I do get some of the notes you're talking about, that kind of bubblegum note, that especially more at the top of the glass.
And I know what that foxy note is, Alan, but I'm not picking it up here. Or must. It's pretty.
Yep.
I get it.
Okay. Dive in and take a first sip.
See, I do get a little bit more on the initial hit on the palate. I do get a little bit more of what you're saying there, Steve, with the fruitiness. It comes a little bit more to the forefront, but at the back on the finish for me, that the dusty thing that Lisa mentioned, hits there.
Yep.
And it's almost tannic, but it's tannic as in like not like it almost isn't even like barrel tannin. It's like if you literally took like a little bit of wheat bran and tried to chew on it. That's what kind of I'm getting a little bit of that out of it.
So very much grain forward. If it's the way you can even say this, grain forward on the finish.
On the palate, I'm getting a little bit oxidized fruit.
When you say oxidized fruit, Lisa,
if you cut an apple and it turns brown, and like the apple tastes different after before it turns brown, and then after it turns brown,
Okay.
And I could see that too, like maybe like 3/4 of the way back, like there's almost like I'm not thinking apple, but I'm thinking almost like an oxidized banana, like where it starts to turn black. There's a little of that banana thing kind of hanging there too before I get that resolution to a little more tannic.
That's why I went generic and said oxidized fruit until I get
Right. Well,
I wasn't going to commit to the fruit yet.
I'm
struggling.
Scientific.
Yeah,
I'm struggling with this one. I'm not going to lie. I'm struggling to find the descriptors for that.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm getting like
color. It's like sawn lumber on the finish.
Yes, I agree. Sawdust a little bit.
Yeah.
Is anyone else getting like a lemon note? That's what I'm getting on the first, like maybe a third or so of it. And then I get like a little bit like a toasted note, and then it does kind of, the finish goes definitely the road you guys are talking about. It's very tannic, and the wood becomes very heavy in this one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean very, but it's up there. Damn it, Kevin, I was trying not to pour all the sample.
You're gonna have to.
That's never gonna happen.
That's on you. That's on you, Patty.
So I get like, third or fourth sip into this thing towards the end. I started getting a little bit of toasting, but it's like a toasted marshmallow, but not as marshmallowy as a marshmallow. If
I was
that's
thinking
an actual
like a lemon meringue was what I was thinking, like for a flavor before. But then it kind of leans to a wood more.
I got lemon balm early on, so I kind of know where you're going. And I always, when it's not like Mike, you're trying to describe, that's always cotton candy to me. Just sort of, or if it's not full on marshmallow or toasted marshmallow, it's just barely there, like confectioner's sugar.
I think that like a toasted meringue is a pretty decent note there. Also a good fat guy tasting note for those that are scoring at home.
We have to keep in line with our show.
That's right.
I could
Fat
see
guy tasting.
I could see that Yeah, that's an official term, by the way.
We have that hashtagged and registered for the last couple of years.
It's also definitely trademarked. Yes. So, I could definitely see the meringue thing, and that's interesting too that you guys mentioned that because I wouldn't have thought of it, and I'll tell you why. And I'm probably going to lose my Hoosier card over this, but I hate meringue pies with a passion.
No. Oh
Yes.
no, you are
The bad ones are terrible. They're just rubber.
Right.
Flat out rubber.
My grandma made everything into a meringue pie, and I love everything my grandma ever made except for meringue pies. I cannot do it. I can't.
Okay, there's and I'm not dissing your grandma by any means, but there are some good meringue pies out there. My wife can make a good meringue pie.
Trash. It's all trash.
It's not.
My mother could do it. I mean, where your fork would just cruise right through it. You know, to have nice structure, but it would pass through the meringue all the same. It's not like those ones from Patty's. What is it? Patty's on Grand Rivers.
Oh, where it's like that thick, yeah.
And it's like tire patch. It's just chewy and awful. Overworked and jello.
Yes. Now we are not saying that this is this whiskey reminds anyone of a tire patch. Okay,
we've gone all culinary on this.
We'll get to that on Alan Bishop Day with Malort again. It'll be okay. Come back around.
All right. Okay. Any other thoughts on whiskey A before we reveal what it is?
No, but it continues to get more tannic with every sip, I think.
Agreed.
No love.
Anything else?
The tannin for me is coming through like green grape stem. A little bit of.
I can see that.
Little vegetal.
So you're going a little. What am I saying? What grappa? Is that in there?
Could be.
That is right.
I said stem, not spit. Yeah.
No, I've not heard green grape stem as a tasting note before, so I'll have to write that one down.
Yeah, in this group, you got to basically stick to food groups, and then everybody.
Yeah. Things you find in a convenience store.
I'll tell you right now, if it tastes like pot roast or Twinkie, we're all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Green jawbreaker.
Yeah.
Green jawbreaker.
Fun dip dust.
Okay. I've used that as a tasting note more than once, and it's very accurate. If you find me a whiskey with a fun dip note, we're friends. We are friends.
Blanton's Gold.
Yeah,
seriously.
we were doing some tastings one night, and Christy Atkinson, who does Distiller's Talk with Alan, was over, and we were tasting this whiskey, and there's maybe 9 or 10 of us, and I said, "Fun dip." It has a fun dip note on it, and everybody else is going, "Oh yeah," and Christy's saying, "What is fun dip?" So she got a case of fun dip delivered by Amazon the next week. So
I get that sometimes, that weird grape note, candy grape note, like Purple Iris, grape Kool-Aid.
Yep. Sometimes I get that
Purple
in Elijah
stuff.
Craig Barrel Proof, which Patrick apparently hates.
Let's just say I'm getting more familiar with every single day.
Take me out of the middle of this before this gets going.
All right. Anything else before we reveal the first sample A?
No.
All right. Let's go with
I want to hear it.
This is Journeyman Distillery Buggywood Wheat Whiskey. Journeyman is in Three Oaks, Michigan. Bill Welter is the distiller there. This is made from 100% Michigan wheat. It is non-age stated and comes in at 90 proof. This product is available online. I think their distribution goes to about 35 different states. If you're in they're based in Michigan, certainly all the surrounding states, and a handful of states spread out. So Journeyman Distillery Buggy Whip Wheat Whiskey. So, all right. So let's go to sample B. Sample B. Everybody get that poured, including myself. Ooh. All right. Everybody got it in the glass? Steve, let's start with you on this one, if we could.
Did you catch my expression or something?
I did not.
I mean, first it's kind of cedary, and then it gets sour, and it's there's a little bit of Parmesan cheese in there.
Holy shit, there is.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, backed by a little gym sock in there too. It's just it's off to me.
You know what's
Musty. Yeah, the musty gym sock, man.
what's bad there though is that it is off, but there is a note behind all that. That wheat
Yes,
note, that sweet wheat note is there. There's definitely, and I haven't tasted it yet, but I would suspect that there's an issue with how they're cutting their distillate on this one.
Absolutely,
They just
Alan.
missed
Absolutely.
just a little on the head side and the tail side, I think.
Absolutely.
Wow, cool.
I wasn't coming up with the tail side, but I certainly come up the head side. And after the silly putty note, I'm getting a silly putty note, and it's going in behind it is I'm coming up with a little bit of like almost mint.
Yeah.
After the,
See, I get, for me on the nose, I get this is what I tend to pick up with on the tails, or on the head side of things. And we've run into this with younger whiskeys before too, where you'll pick up like almost there's almost a banana ester, but here it's almost like plantain. It's raw plantain or green banana.
Like I'm sorry, I'm getting like it's a musty plantain. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's got a little bit of that and a little brown sugar. And I was thinking I was mixing the mustiness up with like a titch of leather and must before I started getting deeper, but the plantain's a good note on that.
Wow, that's I wish I could get it because I love plantains. We're not picking it up.
Sorry. Sometimes I need to back off.
That gets super weird about 3/4 of the way across the palate and just becomes a huge wave of heat on the palate at the back for me. About 3/4 of the way back, just
See, I haven't even sipped it yet, and I had so the first two notes when on the nose, I got sour cherry gels, and then I was trying to figure out what the overall smell was, and I know this sounds bad, but you walk down a dog food aisle, and you just get all those different smells and everything coming out, along with the plastics and everything else. That everything is it just seems like it's not supposed to be there, but it's like all these weird smells that I'm getting off of there.
it's finishing a little bitter for me too.
Yeah.
I haven't had any. Now that you mentioned that, Mike, that's kind of disturbing. Well, no, because you got like the grainy smell, like you said, like that waxy.
I do like. There's like.
Yeah.
I've been in the East Coast for 5.5 years now, so there's like this whole thing in Pennsylvania with the birch beer, and it definitely has like that birch beer, that mint that I'm pulling through is more that weird birch beer mint thing going on.
yeah. And do you get like there's mint and birch beer like that the brightness you get from like the birch beer thing? I pick up on the back, but it almost whatever's going on there, it's fighting each other. Like it's not on the back of the palate, it's not working at all together. It's like two different things coming together there, and
Yeah, like the second half takes off.
yeah,
Like there's heat, there's something different going on.
I don't know if anybody else is picking up like the pith part of like a grapefruit skin, like a
On the finish?
orange kind of.
On the finish, I do, like on the sides of my tongue.
Like when your grandmother used to make candied grapefruit peel, and you thought it was going to taste really great because it's coated in sugar. And this like, when you get older, it's great, but when you're young, you're like, it's terrible.
it's gonna be the first episode. We're only 2 samples in, and we've already destroyed both of them. This is gonna be the first episode of just like us just destroying whiskeys. And hopefully there's some good ones down the line.
It's a healthy kind of destroying. I mean, we're
Right.
trying to be positive.
It's just not pleasant.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. Okay. Patrick says, is that
Yeah, just give me a second. I was
Okay.
swallowing. It's
He's about to
thin.
insult heaven hell again.
Well, if you're gonna go, you gotta go all in. No, I'm just,
Gotta go
you're
big.
leading me into it. I didn't even do anything. I just said I didn't like the way everyone reviews the same thing.
This is why we can't have nice things, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks.
You can't get nice samples.
It wasn't very viscous. Like the first part almost was kind of watery for me on the tongue, and then like you said, like it I don't know, it kind of picked up almost for me, not flavor wise, but like heat wise, intensity, almost like a rye on the second half, and then you got like that little pith note you're talking about on the finish. I don't know. It was a weird combination of flavors. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Aw.
This is Stumpy Spirits Straight Wheat Whiskey Bottled and Bond. It's just a shade over 4 years old. It is 100% soft red winter wheat that is grown on the Stump Farm.
That makes sense.
And Stumpy's is in Columbia, Illinois. The distiller and owner there is Adam Stump. And most of their stuff is you can get at the distillery and in select stores in Illinois and Missouri. And I believe you can get they should have an online store up pretty soon as well. So Stumpy Spirits.
Picks up in the second half.
Wow.
Red winter wheat. That would make sense with that type of.
And that's
That just makes me feel like dirt because I've killed 2.5 bottles of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
well, don't feel bad. I think when we did we had Stump on, I told him that I loved it when I drank it that time. So now I'm playing the reevaluation game myself.
Yeah.
So
Thank God that happens to pros. I mean,
oh yeah.
Well, there's also barrel to barrel. I mean, I don't know. How many?
This was a 4-barrel blend.
Okay, that's what. Yeah, so it could have been a different 4-barrel blend that was.
No, this is the only 4-barrel blend. 4-barrel blend. So
Okay,
this is
well,
it. Yeah, but well, it's one
I'm
that
sorry,
I
Adam.
okay. Now, but I'll say this: when I first tried this it was released in February of this year. I enjoy it. I like it. I like it a lot. But it's when I tried this one that got me thinking more about the wheat whiskey segment and kind of pushed me down that rabbit hole. Although we don't have any rabbit holes, so don't think we do. Pushed me down the wheat whiskey rabbit hole and kind of prompted this show. So, cheers to Adam and
Absolutely.
getting me on this kick. So,
Yep.
All right. So the next one is going to be Sample C. And Patrick, whenever you're ready, you can start us with appearance and nose.
Probably gonna leave appearance to someone else. I'm out on the porch right now, so I do not have the greatest light. But it looks moderately gold amber. It's kind of medium on it. Much lighter, obviously, than the last one. I was gonna say coming in on this one, I do kind of get more of like being in the field of wheat.
Mm-hmm.
They get a little bit more of a green note on it rather than finished off, but not like overly green, but just like I said, in a field where it hasn't been dried or anything. I'm looking for the fat boy tasting note, and it's not coming right now. So I'm having a hard time. It's like I don't know if it's my brain not working, but I'm just not. I'm not seeing it at the moment.
It's hard to one up dog food. Just.
See, I'm going to go back to Stumpy's, and Adam's not going to let me in.
I know. I'm going to have to write him an apology letter as soon as we get off here.
Okay. Anybody else knows appearance?
All right, so for me, I'm going to throw out a weird distiller term here, and maybe I'm in wrong, and Lisa has a more sensitive nose than I do, I know for sure, and I imagine Steve does as well. But there's a little butyric on the nose on that just absolutely, I can't, having been around a dunder pit before, muck pit, whatever you want to call it, I'm having a hard time with it getting past that. And it's faint, but there's a little of that there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Help me with that note. Butyric. What is it?
We'll talk about it behind the scenes.
Stomach acid. Think stomach acid.
Now.
Stomach
Thank
acid.
you, Alan. That's a lovely way to describe it. Yeah.
Butyric acid.
Oh,
Short chain fatty acid is a major energy source for colonocytes. Okay. Buttery.
Welcome to the rabbit hole that doesn't exist on this show.
Butyric. That's new on me. I was kind of enjoying the nose. It was kind of lightly floral, just barely grainy.
Yeah, and the little butyric that I get there is just, it's like a little pinch of it, just enough to let you know that it's there, or at least for me it is.
Yeah, I can't pick out. It's pretty light, and I don't want to say thin and compared to nose but compared to the last one, yes, it's not. It's nowhere near as dense and as.
No, and I'm picking up something. I mean, I'm picking up a little bit of vanilla bean, a little bit of vanilla.
Yeah,
a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of brown sugar, a little floral. Somebody else said floral. And
yes.
And just a little bit of a flawed fermentation, maybe.
The Go ahead, Kevin. I was about to go ahead and start on tasting notes, but I keep waiting.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
To me, the palate is a whole. It's a whole lot better to me than the nose comes off. It's almost got a little bit like of cardamom and maybe a little cola on the front, and it almost even feels a little effervescent to me on the tongue.
Okay.
Hold on.
Any other thoughts?
I was just sorry. There was a discussion about bedtime in the background, so I was muted for a second there. I didn't want that to fully come across what happened.
Been there.
Once again, viscous wise, pretty light.
Yeah.
Goes over pretty quick. Barrel notes on the back end. I get more tannic on the finish, at least on the front half of the tongue. Come on here.
After the nose is opened, I get a little bit of like a spice cake kind of thing going on in the nose.
Yeah, and that little butyric thing that I was picking up, it cleared up after setting for a minute for the most part as well. And I don't dislike this one overall. I think there's actually some, it's not real heavy, it's pretty thin, but I think that there's enough complex notes in there to keep you kind of interested in coming back and going, what exactly is that little thing that's there? So
Mike, what do you get?
Anybody else get a little raisin?
Yeah. So my overall, I was trying to put all the pieces together, and I'll call it my fat guy note. But if you've gone to like an event where people have done like potluck desserts and stuff like that, somebody always brings some sort of crumb cake with some frosting that's got every ingredient in the kitchen in it, like raisins and nuts and all that stuff. And they're all stale, but they used them all up and put them all in there. So but it was
you
just
leave
like,
Aunt Lucy alone.
I mean, it's just and I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just like it's one of those cakes where you're like, you put everything in this cake and you
that's where I'm coming up. I think what you're describing is my spice cake note, right? Spice cake and Italian and kitchen sink cake note. Yeah.
I was getting like butterscotch, and then I got your cake note at that point, or at least like a little bit in the front. I was getting butterscotch, and then like
I get the whole raisin nut thing too. That makes total sense.
Boy, all right, you're way ahead of me on this one. I'm not getting anything.
I'm going back to the
It's
nose
hotter, though.
on that too. Now that it's cleared up a little bit, I can definitely pull the brand notes that are in there.
Mhm.
I'm getting a lot more now going back to it.
Okay. Anything
I mean,
else?
you guys going. We're going to be done with 5 in, like, said, 50 minutes. You got us on quite a pace there, Kev. I like it.
I'm following your pace.
You notice that Kevin is just obviously, and he knows the answers to these questions, right? But you notice that he's also choosing his words wisely and setting back and waiting
Yeah.
for us to respond.
That's why he's a host.
Don't you smile like that, Kevin. It's
What?
not funny.
That's my job. That's my job here.
Let me ask the distillers. I mean, we've all agreed this is really lean bodied. Is that a characteristic of distilling wheat, or is it just the way the distiller chose to cut or ferment or age or what?
All of those things, and probably the cooperage choice too, and the age on it.
If I had to measure a guess as well, that might be a little bit different. I'm suspecting that their mash bill was fairly light, and I don't know. That's, to me, it just comes off as there's not a lot of those wheat characteristics there overall, and I'm wondering if their specific gravity is fairly low, or if maybe they're even running a wash as opposed to a mash.
Is that common for wheat whiskey to do a wash versus a mash?
No,
Yes.
but I think
It actually is. Yeah, it can.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I figure it's a young enough thing that so few people are doing that the people that are probably doing it are more likely to run a wash in general anyways. So, but yeah. I don't know enough about
to
wheat
avoid-
whiskey
just-
itself.
Yeah, way back
Just to
in the
avoid-
50s too. You know, I'm almost tasting like a green wheat, like I don't know what green wheat tastes like, but
Like
my
an immature.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Almost like a milky sort of thing. Yeah.
Would they choose a wash just to avoid scorching, or is distilling on grain with a lot of wheat going to produce some negative effects?
So I'm going to presume that, and again, I'm not coming from a historical perspective on the wheat distillation, because I've not come across that many of them in the U.S. I know there were a lot in Canada back in the day, but I'm going to presume that most people who are going to make a wheat whiskey are going to be pretty new to the game, because it's a pretty new. It's not really a new category, but for craft distillers it is. So a lot of those guys are running with electric elements in their stills, stuff like that, right? So they're going to be more likely to run a wash as opposed to a mash, so they don't have to worry about scorching anything in the still, etc. I may be way off on that. I don't know who this
Now,
is.
Alan,
So.
I wouldn't have come up with that, but that's a good observation.
I'm probably completely wrong on that. Just to throw that out there, but
Well, I'm going to back you up, so then we're both completely wrong.
right.
I kind of got lost in the glass for a second. Is anyone else getting like this? Almost like a really dark, like blackstrap rum smell in it. Like,
Well, it's
Hey,
kind of interesting
bit
that you
of maple.
mentioned the blackstrap thing, though, because that when we brought up butyric, that's one of those things that happens in certain rum fermentations.
It also can be an ingredient in spice cake. So,
Really?
yeah.
Brer
I've heard of
rabbit.
Oh,
My mom used to use Brer rabbit molasses. Yeah.
That's all. I was just getting it like in the very bottom end of it when you guys were talking. So I'm sorry if that's what you're talking about, but I got lost in my own path for a second there.
I do on the palate, though, now going back to the palate, also pick up some of that butterscotch that you mentioned as well, Patrick.
But only on like the very first, like,
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like,
this is a fun little whiskey. I like it.
I think it's one of those
Interesting.
that's interesting enough that, like, whoever's making it, it could go to the next level pretty easily, and it would only take a few modifications to get there, I think, and maybe actually have some pretty decent commercial appeal overall.
Sour note.
All right. Any other thoughts on sample C?
I'm good on that one.
All
I'm
right.
intrigued to see who it is. So
Middle West Spirit. months.
Fair enough.
Awesome.
Now,
Awesome.
this, and again, part of what I wanted to do was to present wheat whiskey in different formats, I guess. And this is a wheat whiskey, 5-year-old wheat whiskey that is finished in an Oloroso cask.
Really?
It
I would have
is.
never come up with the cask finish.
There's your raisin.
Yep.
Yep.
There's your raisin
Yep.
and your nuts.
Yep.
So it is 5 years old. It is 100 proof and 100% Ohio soft red winter wheat.
And that's also with what Lisa said about the the kind of green wheat idea. So you're dealing with a soft winter wheat instead of a hard winter wheat, which changes the profile quite a bit as well.
Okay. Middle West is in Columbus, Ohio. Ryan Lang is the distiller, and this product is available online. This is one of their special releases. It is so I don't know if it's readily available online, but I think that they do release it a couple times a year. And Middle West distributes their product in about 40 different states. So there we go. All right. Now are we ready for sample D?
Always.
Patrick,
Tell us what you think about Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
It's the greatest thing ever. I actually really like it, so that's the problem. It's like I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna get kicked out, and I'll be like, I remember this show. Where you said, I'll be like, that is not what I said. I just said I don't like watching 900 reviews of it. That's all.
Everyone clearly took the victim instead of taking the perpetrator, and now we're just sticking with the victim. So
That's fun.
I may be sitting on a few hundred of those barrels these days.
And I like your whiskey too. So this is the problem. Now,
the rest of us
now
love
everyone's
it.
got me on a shit list.
The rest of us love it.
Thanks,
So I don't know what Patrick's problem is, but
Yeah, but I'm a blender. Remember? Yeah.
what's that? What's that thing that Jack says all the time? The thing about waking up and choosing violence.
Yeah.
yeah, I did a blind tasting with Jack once, and he tasted it, and he had good things to say about it. And then I revealed to him what it is, and why do you come at me with this violence? I'm like, wait, whoa! I'll let you try a whiskey, man. I don't know. Apparently, he had some issue with Chattanooga whiskey that I was unaware of. But he seemed to like the sample that I gave him. But apparently, I was bringing violence.
That's funny.
Yeah. Goodness. All
There's a lot going on with this nose.
Yep.
Butterscotch, green apple, cinnamon.
Trying to disguise some of the, in our not disguise, but have to try not to overlap some of our barrel codes and stuff. And so I'm looking at it when my director of operations, they've got a VDHB. I'm like, what the heck is it? VDHB. She goes, very delicious honey barrels. Okay, all right.
Mine just have smiley faces.
I can work with that, yeah.
Everybody knows what Allen's would be then, so you can just walk through and find the smiley face barrels.
Give me that one. It's the one I want.
Right? I get that green apple on that, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost and it's a weird tasting note for what we're tasting, but there's almost a little of that Cardew green apple thing on the nose on this one that I'm picking up. If you guys are familiar
with that apple.
So Cardew Distillery.
Okay.
Not. Yeah.
So some ester.
Yeah.
In their process, or a little flat Coca-Cola in there. Taste.
It's light and nuanced. Like everything Steve's saying is in there, but it is.
There's
neat
nothing
one to dig into because it's light.
Yeah, there's nothing on the nose there that I'm finding it is off whatsoever. There's no I mean, you can jump hardcore into that one. You're not going to get any ethanol burn, or I'm not picking up any faults whatsoever.
But I agree with that, but it doesn't seem unified. It seems kind of easy to pick out all those elements separately.
Right.
They don't fight, but they don't necessarily unify real well. I don't know. I still find it really interesting.
This is one of those I almost feel like on the nose is light enough just in general. I feel like I have to warm it up some just to really get much out of it.
What the hell?
Okay. Any other thoughts on the nose before you jump in and have a sip?
It's
I
light.
had a sip.
It's a really clean distillation. I think it's light. It's clean.
Okay. All right. Any thoughts on the taste?
That go ahead.
Mike, hadn't heard from you in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting because there's a cola sweetness to it without the without all the carbonation. I was trying to figure out because the nose is it felt like I had to really dig in there, but I kept getting apples. But it reminded me of it like if you buy like a package of dried apple pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little bit of spices and stuff like that on there. Which that's maybe not a fat guy tasting note. That's just a snacking note. But
Apple Jacks, would that count?
That's heavy.
I mean, not sugary enough, but
on the nose and the palate, I'm getting something that's almost like a sweet custard. Like I want to keep thinking there was like some kind of milky note, and I was trying to identify what like milky note was, and I think it's more like a cooked custard kind of.
Freaking Smacks cereal, like the little puffed wheat cereal when it sets in
Sugar
the milk
Smacks.
for a little while. Yes.
Sugar Smacks.
With the frog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Next time, send Sugar Smacks instead of.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
On the palate, I love this one on the palate.
Yeah, I do
but
too.
I go back. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I still am going back. So there's two things interesting here. So to me, I still am going back to like that kind of Lowland Highland Scotch line, like that Cardew fruity sweetness. But this is the first one of the wheat whiskeys that we've had all night that doesn't come off like wheat bran. It comes off like wheat, especially on the exhale. And you definitely pick up those positive cereal notes, those nice, sweet, round, sugary kind of notes.
Hold on here. I get back at it.
Patty, what were you going to say? Now that you're taking another drink.
I get the custard part, but on the finish, or as I'm swallowing, like in the middle part of my tongue, I get like this sweeter, dark, rich, almost like a date for a second.
Okay.
And I'm getting that more on the finish now. It's like a candied fruit. I can't peg it right now though. That was my problem. But it's like it was a darker note.
I really like that one a lot, honestly. I think the nose could be a little bit more intense, but
yeah, I think the flavor is much more the palate's way more intense than what the nose is. I was gonna say that's one where it's at least it's like it's way more complex because when I go in, I was thinking light. I was getting all these like complex, complex nose notes, but not like heavy. And then when I'm getting into the flavor on it was heavier than what I was expecting. So that was
I love how clean I love how clean the nose is. The nose is just like so. I mean, it's not really complex, but the nose is really clean and sweet. And
I also get a little white pepper on the finish too, which is kind of nice, especially on the exhale. It just it's right there, and it's just enough to remind you that you're drinking something. And there's just enough flavor there to bring you back to it to try to analyze what exactly it is. But a 5-year-old me is all about the soggy cereal bowl. So there you go. There's your fat kid tasting note right there. So.
Yeah. Let's be honest. 35 or 36-year-old use the same way. So
That was a couple of years ago, but yes, absolutely. I wish I had another sample of that one's what I'll say. And watch Kevin's gonna.
Is there a hint of? I'm sorry. Is there a hint of ginger on the palate?
Certainly brings the heat of ginger.
Maybe that's what I'm getting instead of the white pepper.
I can see that.
I don't know about the ginger, but I get the heat part of that second half like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of again, and we had it in number 2 as well, or sample B, whatever it was. That almost like effervescent sort of thing that happens.
Yeah.
At the risk of sounding a little too girly here, it's a really elegant whiskey. It's really nice. I mean, it's light and
I like elegant. I think it's a cool word.
Yeah, elegant is a nice
Classy.
word.
Sweet.
We don't say elegant enough these days.
yeah, no, it's you know, it's just a really nice example of the category.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on sample D?
It's no Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Well, no, but what is?
Well, it's their wheat release. You know.
All right.
Yeah,
here
but
we
which
go.
batch?
Yeah. Are you in charge of labeling the batches, Lisa? Is that your job? Do you get to call like batch C119 or who does that?
I do that.
You do that? Okay.
Do they ever let you pick fun names for stuff?
Oh, we have code names that would never, you know, the public.
I'm sure.
Yeah. No. We all have a sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done almost 800 batches though of blends. We've done almost 800
Wow.
blends.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you know, so we have to keep them straight. So we've had to like develop codes as we go. You know.
Is there a BR549 batch? And if so, could we get a bottle of that?
We have a 549, but I don't have it.
That's Junior Samples' private pick.
Junior samples tasting note. Okay, so
That's about Fat Kid notes.
all right. So far tonight, I've referenced This Is Spinal Tap, Love Boat, Fantasy Island, and Hee Haw.
You are dating yourself, Kevin.
Yes, I am. I too have grandchildren. Please. I too have grandchildren. So,
And we haven't even started in on the Rush jokes. That's coming.
oh man, hey, right back here, moving pictures. So, all right, everybody ready for a sample D reveal?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is from
Nice.
Dry Fly Distilling, straight wheat whiskey. This is their cask strength release. They have a
Drinks like it.
90 proof release, and then they have this cask strength release. It is 3 years old. It is 100% Washington State wheat. I think all the grains they use are within 30 miles of the distillery. But Dry Fly is based in Spokane, Washington. The distiller and owner there is Don Poffenroth. Don was on the second show that we did this year when we talked about alternative grains and his triticale whiskey. Dry Fly is distributed, I think, in about 40 different states. I don't think that every release that they have, every bottle that they have gets released everywhere. But this one is really, really good. I enjoy it.
And his triticale was excellent as well.
Yeah,
It was
I
fantastic.
would agree.
Oh, I'd love to taste that.
That can be arranged, Lisa. I'll send you that in a box of Sugar Smacks. So,
Counting on it.
all
I
right.
would get to buy them for myself, but I would be so thrilled if somebody actually sent me a box of Yeah.
But if I do that, you have to name a bottle of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof BR549 and send that to me. So,
I'll
is that
do it.
fair? Is that a deal?
Yeah, Kevin, you
It's
need to text that to me because when I go into I'm not going in tomorrow. I have to go to Nashville, but yeah, when I go in next week, I'll keep a straight face and tell them.
Okay, but the real test will be how many people in there will get the joke.
None of them, but they'll all look at me like, "Oh my gosh, she's lost her friggin' mind again."
Again.
What is it now?
Again, you've been a Heaven Hill employee for since February, and they're going to say you lost your mind again. All right, well, good.
I'll just say this, Lisa. It's probably worth at least trying because with the people who are on here right now, not including myself, I can think of at least 3 guys on the show that are basically smoked cheese dealers. So, if you want some smoked cheese or some smoked bacon, this is the right group to fight for.
I love that. I love that. I'm too much of a Midwest. I'm too much of a Hoosier to pass on cheese and
Right.
cheese and smoked meat.
When I finally die of a cheese-induced heart attack, there's a couple names that are going to be on my tombstone.
I'll either go with you or I'll go with Steve over Kentucky Country Ham. Right? I'm either gonna.
Mm-hmm.
Do the ham. You get the gout and the heart attack.
Yes. Both worlds. Had the heart attack because my toe hurt so bad.
I'll go
I had to
happy.
bring my production team out to Kentucky, and I've got a couple of vegetarians, and I told them, I said, you have to understand in Kentucky, vegetarian means there's only 2 meats per meal. It's like,
Oh, man.
right?
What all are you missing out on if you don't pair whiskey with meat? I mean,
Oh.
that's sad. Breaks my heart. All right. Well, we're on sample E, our final sample for the evening. So we've got a
final sample.
Final sample, but it will. We'll have some things to discuss afterwards too. So don't go away.
I'm going to just go ahead and throw apricot out on that immediately.
Gosh, that smells like something straight out of Brown Foreman.
I'll tell you this: it is not
boozy. Yeah, I'm sure it isn't boozy medicinal note.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I get that apricot, but I just get. Is that those just big esters I'm getting too? I mean, those are just. I'm fumbling with the word.
I'm getting like a cherry.
I love the freaking nose on this.
That's a big boy.
If we were blinded and we didn't know that this was whiskey, I would honestly think that this was a fruit brandy of some sort, just off the nose.
I think it's fair. Golly, that's cool.
There's almost a little phenolic character in there too, like a little, almost like blackberry seed kind of weirdness going on that I like.
Mm-hmm.
My first guess is this has got some other cask finish on it.
Oh. Color's dark enough.
Yeah, I don't have it good enough lighting in here to tell.
I could be off track, but I'm agreeing with Ellen on that apricot.
It's got some pretty nice legs on it too for whatever it is for being just a weeded without. I'm presuming it's not modified. It's not.
No. I was trying to get. Yeah, it is much darker. So I was trying to get the look on that. It does have a little bit more of a pinkish hue, but of course I'm using a phone light, so take that as it goes. People watching. Well, I just don't want to get people with perception. Like, oh yes, I was look at my fancy setup off to the side here.
Down in the catacombs of your dungeon there.
What is that fancy light you have? It's just my wife's makeup light. It was here in the tiny. It was here in the tiny bedroom.
And all the Hollywood lights on the mirror.
Just around her purse to get it.
Right.
I just love the fruit bomb. I mean, it's like almost spoiled fruit, like overripe, way overripe pineapple and banana.
And it's weird to me to get that apricot and almost like what Patrick said, that little bit of cherry off of something that's made of wheat, because usually I don't pull any stone fruit off of anything with wheat in it.
I'm getting like just a touch of mustiness, but not a lot. See, sometimes I feel like I could go back to the one before it.
See, I get a little bit of Christmas candle on the nose. I don't know if it's a cinnamon, nutmeggy thing. Not like
it's so freaking good.
Christmas tree, but okay. You ready to dive in for a taste?
Carries over to the palate.
Yeah.
It's very creamy too for whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's very berry. Holy.
Yeah.
Like
Very berry.
very berry. Like
Very,
this.
very.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Man,
Like candy berry.
I
Yeah,
can't
this-
peg them all. Like this is.
Like
I
gourmet
could
runs.
track, but I'm thinking of port cask finish or
I hope so because that's what I think.
I get
too.
that grape flavor.
Especially on the exhale, that fruit really, and it's still almost that phenolic thing for me. That kind of, not really so much blackberry seeds, but like the kind of I guess the same kind of aromatic feeling that you get from that.
I think what you said, Alan, from earlier is, had you given Distill in a Blind to me, I probably, even on the taste, still would have leaned away from a wheat whiskey and more towards a brandy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but that's probably more because of what I assume is a finish on it. And if I'm wrong, consider my mind fucking blowing. That'll be outstanding.
This is one of those that if this was on a barrel pick and this was put in front of me, I would fight everyone else on the barrel pick to make this happen.
I'm so convinced now that it's like a port cask finish that I hope it's not. I hope somebody came up with these flavors some other way. Right?
You know, the one thing I will say though, you can pick up on just a little bit of that like starchy wheat thing that's in there, which is good and it's a positive thing. But otherwise, that wheat is completely covered up. That wheat's not representing itself in this distillate, right? And that's not a bad thing.
I agree with you. If somebody put this in front of me, I don't know that I would be able to identify it as a wheat whiskey.
No.
Now saying it like on the finish, there's like a little bit where it jumps up and a little bit in the beginning where I can taste that. But I'm probably more hunting for that now.
And I do feel like this one's fairly high proof as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, by the nose and by initially on the palate, I was like, oh, this would be a really good dessert whiskey. But then with I get the impression it's a higher proof. It's like, okay, this would be a good dessert whiskey that you're not going to have anything else after this one.
Right. I'm definitely buying a bottle of this one if it's available somewhere, whatever it is.
It's really nice.
Okay. All right. So there've been a lot of comments made, but as far as the taste, I'm hearing that it was creamy, very berry, some conjecture that it's a port cask finish. Anything else specific in terms of the palate?
So to me, there's definitely, so I lean on the fruity thing, and maybe this is one of the aspects of the wheat that's kind of showing through in us as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a little bit of a pastry sort of thing going on there too that I really like, and it's definitely like a fruit-filled pastry of some sort, like a blueberry, something of that nature.
Overripe. You said the blackberry earlier. It's like overripe blackberries in a good way. Like when they get, when they get a little tannic and a little overly.
What's that word they use here in Hoosier land when they talk about blackberry wine? They say it's got a wang. It's got that blackberry wine's got a wang.
Got a wang to it
in there.
I feel like that's the mustard.
Yes. I've made a little blackberry wine when I was in Indiana.
Right.
So maybe a blackberry cobbler, blackberry
blackberry dumplings.
Yeah,
a little of that. I could see that.
I'm hungry.
I almost feel like it's an open faced pie. Like there's just a little. There's not enough pastry on top or something. Like
is there meringue? Those
no meringue.
No meringue.
Creaminess,
okay.
but no.
I would hate
it
if that was the case.
I'm bringing you a meringue pie, Bishop.
Don't you bring me a meringue pie?
You're going to have a meringue pie and you're going to like it.
You bring me bread pudding and I'll be a happy fat boy. I will say this.
And no baklava, just meringue pie.
Oh, no.
What if it was a cheese meringue pie, Alan?
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
I'm always up for a good challenge. I'm just, I can always pull the meringue off of there and, just go with the cheese. I will throw you a fat kid pairing with this, though.
Yep.
Little fried rabbit with this.
Fried rabbit.
Fried rabbit with anything. Anything.
I love
that. Yeah, but especially with those fruity notes, man, that'd be right on.
All right.
Again, Alan, your Hoosier showing. My grandfather used to raise rabbits for me.
Yep. Hey, let me tell you, as a distiller, Lisa, you got to find you a barrel guy that also raises rabbits and makes pickled eggs.
Awesome.
Because I've got the hookup on that from Zach Cooperage if you need it. So
I saw that dude. I saw I didn't see anything. Never mind.
I was
Just
just
saying,
saying.
he shows up with a load of barrels and 4 rabbits and 4 jars of pickled eggs every time he comes.
That's
and he's
so unfair. That's so unfair. I was just at Zach. That's where I've been buying all my barrels for 5.5 years, 6 years, 7 years.
You got to get Larry Traxler to deliver those barrels. I don't know if he'll drive to New York or not.
I will do that.
I bet Larry likes Elijah Craig barrel proof. Okay. Any other thoughts on sample E?
It's fantastic, but you can still tell it's high proof.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like that's
But
that's the only thing on it.
Smelling the empty glass afterwards, it's pie filling. I mean, it's just it smells like pie filling to me.
Mm-hmm. No,
in a lot of really good ways.
Is there a bad way?
Well, if it's a meringue pie,
sugary?
apparently, but
Okay, well, that's not filling. Okay,
You mean a trash pie?
you don't have a meringue pie. Okay,
a double meringue.
but maybe we
double
could.
meringue with a
I
little
don't know.
wang.
Lang.
I'd say that's a category, Mike.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, are we ready for the reveal on
I'm
sample
intrigued
E?
on this one.
All right.
Yeah.
This is from Brooklyn Distilling.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Now, this one's different in a couple of ways.
134 proof. Dope.
100% malted wheat whiskey. So this is all malted wheat.
Oh my gosh, that's
really
with this. That's so
That's where
interesting.
that's where that stone.
good for them.
Yep. 134 proof.
So where did the stone fruit come from?
The malted
The malt-
wheat.
The malted
Yeah.
wheat. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's
that's remarkable. That's exactly what I was hoping that it was not. I mean, they came up some other way. This is awesome.
Yeah. It is 8 years old, 100% New York wheat. This was a seal box private pick. And unfortunately,
Wow.
it is no longer available. But Blake tells me that they've got some more that would be coming in. Brooklyn is in Brooklyn, New York.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes,
Right.
which Lisa's neighbor, Brad Estabrook, is the distiller there. And most of the distribution is primarily New England states, but they also have some stuff available online, and they have several of their products online at our friends at sealbox.com, Blake Reiber, whose birthday was yesterday. Happy birthday, Blake.
I'm gonna have to buy one of these for sure. And then tomorrow I am ordering malted wheat. It's happening.
Yeah, that's
All right. So tell me how that malting the wheat creates that stone fruit.
So
That's
I'm
what you're talking about.
I'm just presuming it was a malted wheat, but here's what I'll say, Steve. So like with malted rye, and I suspect Lisa's had the same experience. So with malted rye, you go from the ordinary rye characteristics that you would tend to think of, and you go into almost like a little bit of like when you bite into a peach or an apricot, that area right between the flesh and the skin. So I suspect that malted wheat can do the same thing, but I don't know that.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
use
curious.
malted rye in my bourbon mash bill. I use malted rye, and it gives the way it comes across for us is just like a really heavy cream note, and with more using heirloom corn.
And you're basically
I'll have to look for
when you malt it, you're changing the protein and you're changing the profile entirely, and you're also cooking at a different temperature when you're using malt as well. So
and I'll say this: the other product that I have from this distillery is an American single malt, a 7-year-old American single malt, and there's some of the same DNA there. So I don't know if that's in his distillation technique and the yeast that he may use.
Could be,
but there's some similar DNA in there. If that's a non-distiller's description of how that flavor profile would carry over.
I will tell you this: if I order a bottle of that, there's going to be a day of work missed, and there's probably going to be another mud fossil video.
Well, we all have that to look forward to,
right?
Now, I guess when we're talking about wheat whiskey, and we looked at a couple of things that were basically off the standard product off the shelf. We looked at a one that was finished in a wine cask, and then we had one that was cask strength, and then we had another that was cask strength but with malted wheat. In general, thoughts about wheat whiskey as a segment in the industry?
So as a distiller, I will say that I think that it has a lot of growth to do, right? And I think that there's also a lot of levity to it if you do it the right way and you approach it the right way. And the nice thing about it is, while we didn't like everything that we tasted was incredibly different, which shows you what you can get out of wheat, right?
Mhm.
And if there's things that we did like that you can kind of hone in on and sort of tweak to make your own. And I think it's a big enough category that you can really do something cool with it. And one of the things that I did learn in my time at Copper and Kings was it's all about what market is served well and what market is well served.
Mhm.
And I think that that's one of those markets that you can drop into and you could do something really interesting and different. And if you get behind it, you could really do something cool with it.
I agree. I think the other category that right behind that is American whiskey. I think that once the consumer gets educated about what those things are, and people do these lovely expressions like this, I think that there's a lot of merchantability in all of it.
Well, and the other thing with it too that I'll throw out as well, because and you're in the same boat, Lisa, with doing the farming thing as well. But there are the diversity of wheat is insane. Wheat is our oldest cultivated grain, and there's literally seed banks all over the world full of wheat samples waiting to be played with. So,
what about the aspect of this? Because each of the 5 of these, and this was something that I found to be very interesting, they're using grains native to their state. So whether it was Journeyman in Michigan or Stumpy's in Illinois or Middle West in Ohio, Dry Fly in Washington, or Brooklyn in New York, all of them were using wheat grown in their state. How significant is that?
I think that's what makes them special. If you're going to try something. Yeah, if you're going to try something and be a local distillery, you might as well, lean on the people around you to try something unique. Unless, of course, you find out that the flavor is off-putting. I mean, that sounds bad, but there have been places who have used local stuff and they're like, no, we're not doing that. We had better luck over here. Then you use what makes the better whiskey. But I think that's what makes a little bit of it interesting is using local grains. Plus, I always like finding which ones have a different profile, or people who play with like wheat, or like say if you're doing rye, like Mike up at Far North Spirits in Minnesota, where he's planting 15, 16 different types of rye, and making whiskeys with each of them, because that way you can actually get like terroir should be the same, so you're getting the actual flavor of the wheat or the rye then, and with someone who's doing that, or like Gary at Wood Hat, kind of similar stuff where it's all being grown in the same area, but there is 15, 20, 70 different types of what they're doing. So I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
I've been to Law's Whiskey in Denver a couple of times and heard their farmers talk about how different all their grains are, because they're grown at such high altitude, between 7,000 and 9,000 feet. And they get a really big dose of UV at that altitude, but they also get the temperature change that we don't get here. We were talking about this yesterday, Kevin, that in the summertime, it's very dry and it heats well above 90 degrees during the day, but it plummets to close to 50 at night. And they believe that gives the grain a break that you don't get here in Kentucky and Indiana, because all that humidity just lays on top of it, overnight. It doesn't get to cool off. But their Law's Centennial Wheat Whiskey is just a fruit bomb in every direction. Not stone fruit, but more citrus, very bloomy, floral, yeasty stuff. It's terrific.
You also get all those stressors from being in that environment as well, right? And those stressors a lot of times on the plants actually make for better whiskey, right? I mean, some of the best whiskey I've ever made has been made out of the ugliest rye that I've ever seen in the world. So, you're not getting anything proof gallon wise out of it. As long as it don't have mold on it and it smells good, it'll make good whiskey.
I'm
So
growing
is it
this
4
in
yields
corn
with
in
just
3
grape
states.
flavor?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa, please.
Yeah, Lisa.
Oh, that's okay. No, I'm growing the same corn in 3 states, and I have now for 4 years, right? And so I grow upstate New York, outside of Avoca. I grow in Pennsylvania, seed corn there, not production corn, and then I also grow in Kentucky the same corn. So it's so interesting. 3 years ago, it was just a fluke because of the weather that they planted everything in the same week, right? It was total fluke, right? And it was so interesting because the harvest window was almost 7 to 8 weeks difference between when it came out of the ground in Kentucky, when it came out of the ground, or when it got harvested in Pennsylvania, and then New York. We were crossing our fingers because Avoca's pretty far north. That we were going to have too many heavy frosts before it was due. So yeah, but the interesting thing is how different the flavors are from this same seed corn going in those 3 states at the same time. And people are like, well, don't you want it to taste the same? I'm like, that's why we blend. I don't want it to taste the same because I can bring a lot more to the table with the different expressions. But there were, terroir, right? They're remarkably different.
On those 3 different corn origins of your corn, were you putting that in, or were each of those going into bourbon and you're tasting the differences there, or were you just
of 2
drinking
states
it out of
going
a
into
corn
bourbon?
whiskey?
The third state is 2 of them are going into bourbon. The third state is my second insurance policy on seed corn. I've got seed corn in New York and production corn in New York. I only have seed corn in Pennsylvania because hail, locust, acts of God. It's a one-of-a-kind corn, right? So I have to be sure that I've got seed for the next year. So that's the reason I grow in 2 places. But but the production corn in New York comes to New York. In the meantime, for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been laying down barrels at Castle and Key, right? Peterson Farms is growing for me in Kentucky, and I've been laying a few thousand barrels down every year there. So it's fun. It's fun to it's all so different, and you were talking about the grain's got to be good too. Cause I've had, everybody keeps bugging me about the Empire Rye program. I'm like, so I'm not even gonna name the distiller, gives me a hard time. I'm like, okay, you give me your farmer's name because I haven't been presented with any rye yet until this year. And now we're running an Empire Rye for the first time. That didn't taste like barnyard, didn't taste like bad storage, didn't taste like aflatoxin, and so, so it's like bad in, bad out, right? You can't make good whiskey out of bad grain. And
at least legislatively, it makes sense. It's not like Indiana rye, in a state that has no real history of rye whiskey production locally, short of one very large company.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other overall thoughts on the tasting? This was
great.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Viscous wise, sorry, I was gonna say viscous wise, they all felt a little thin compared to other segments in general. It felt like a little light on. It's not like any of them were like very coating on the tongue right away. I am just surprised how much the malting thing had. That, man, I feel like an ass, man. I totally thought there was port involved in that. Like this is why you like blind tastings and why I never have like a high opinion of myself in them.
Yes, yeah, it's a good way to make yourself feel like dirt,
Exactly, like wow.
Like the fact
this is why I shouldn't bleed.
I have drank 2.5 bottles of Adams whiskey, of Adams wheat whiskey. I like it. I'm a fan, and it did not taste anything like that at all. So, yeah,
also
very surprising.
I think that's also the beautiful part of this, though, too, is that everybody's going to walk away from this having learned something about a subject that we didn't know that much about, right? And I think that doing panels like this, especially on things that are maybe a little more odd, is worthwhile, right? I mean, there's a lot of these panels that you could do like this, not even just whiskey related alone, but other products as well. So
no, I would love to do one at some point on American single malt. Okay, but the thing about the wheat whiskey aspect of this is, one of the things anyway, is I doubt that any of you guys have spent a significant amount of time over the last several weeks tasting different wheat whiskeys, right? So you're probably drinking some bourbon, drinking some rye, and so this is something that's a little different. It may take a little bit to get your palate adjusted to what you're getting out of a wheat whiskey. Now, I hear I've heard a lot of people say that wheat is a placeholder in a mash bill, that it basically just takes on whatever elements from the aging process and the barrel, and that's what you get. What are your thoughts on that kind of comment? Agree, disagree?
That's nonsense. I just think that I think it adds way too much spice character. You know, when distilled right. I mean, a great example is Maker's Mark at 90 does nothing for me, but at cask strength it's fantastic. And I think the wheat it just gets all the baking ingredients out of the pantry and puts them just straight right in your face. So no, I would say it plays a great role, and it can have a standout role if it's managed right.
I think a lot of times, and if you did this blind too, I would say this. I think that wheat definitely has its place in distillation, especially when the positive aspects of the wheat are left in place, the grain aspects that are positive, right? I think that when it comes to something like a wheated bourbon, a lot of times if you were to take a Weller, and we talked about this before, Kevin and Patrick, Mike, etc. You took a Weller and you blinded a bourbon drinker on Weller. And honestly, Lisa did that to me one time years ago at a bar. I don't know if she remembers that or not, but she went and got me a drink and brought me a Weller and asked me what it was. And I would have swore to you that it was a high rye bourbon because that so much of that peppery spice was there and it was at the forefront, versus if you can find a way to hold on to those positive grain aspects, right? There's some cool, sweet contrast. There's some of that brand characteristic. There's some of that cereal characteristic. Right. I think we're just now as distillers starting to learn again how to use wheat the right way. And again, the options are out there. There's the genetic diversity of wheat is insane. So there's a lot that we can do with that.
I don't know wheat whiskey well enough to like tonight. This is great. This is awesome because, you know, it threw me off. I'm still, you know, I'm going to write Brooklyn tomorrow and tell him, like, you know, bravo, right? Because that was remarkable. You know,
yeah. And if you have,
as I said, I hope that this came through. My glass is empty. I'm pointing at it like I still have whiskey in it. But I was hoping that they came to this without the cask finish. Right? It's like I want to know what they've done because this is really lovely. It's really lovely whiskey.
Yeah.
If either of you, Kevin or Lisa, if you have contacts with those guys, can you get with me and send them over for Distillers Talk?
Yeah, I'm sorry I have an early flight tomorrow, Alan, or I drive over there.
Right.
We'll be there and get some bottles before I fly tomorrow. I will certainly try to get over there next week.
I have when I first got this bottle of the malted wheat whiskey and the American single malt, I reached out to Brad and haven't heard back. So I'm going to use our friend Blake Reiber at Sealbox to
Sealbox.com
kind of prod him along, because I wanted to get him on our show as well, because I enjoy his whiskey, and I think having a conversation about that would make a whole lot of sense, especially for Distillers Talk.
Right. Yeah, because I'm just going to press him super hard on what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm selfish like that. So
yeah.
This is fabulous. Yeah.
I think what you mentioned with like the wheats and the spiciness you're getting out of them, especially like red winter wheat that I found. There's been even like Douglas and Todd out of Minnesota when I first had it, not like super fan or anything like that, but I was like, this is a rye. And they use Minnesota barrels, so a little bit tighter that way and stuff. But it was red winter wheat, and I was like, bullshit, I was totally wrong. You know, like I was like, I had no idea. So like that was the first time I was like, okay, you can actually get like a decent amount of spice at least out of a red winter wheat. And it's come through in a couple of these, but the difference between the soft was interesting because I hadn't had that before. So.
Well, here's another interesting thing. This is wheated bourbon, obviously, but I actually used that lesson that Lisa taught me about the Weller forever ago in that blind. That's actually how
Alan,
we
I'm
sell.
having a little freak out because I'm like, was it the night? Not when we were like, okay, never mind.
Right.
Wait a minute. You
That was
really
just
left
like
that.
that,
You really left that hanging in an uncomfortable
Because
spot.
it was
Lisa.
that night.
It was a night I forgot where I parked my car. We'll put it that
Yeah,
way.
that's what I'm thinking. I forgot where my truck was. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyways, we actually use that. That's one of our ways of, like, when I walk into an account and I want to sell William Dalton,
Mhm.
if it's an on-premise account, I'll be like, pull the Weller down and give me the Dalton, and I will pour them, and we'll do a blind of them, and we'll see which
Right.
one you guys actually want to use in the bar. And it
Right.
works every time.
Every time.
So,
And as far as the whole idea that rye is spicy, you do a blind. I've done blind tastings a few times where I'll have different levels of rye in a bourbon mash bill, and then I'll have a wheated bourbon, and they're as likely to pick the wheated bourbon as the most spicy as they are the Four Roses. And I think that there's a whole lot more that goes into that, into what that flavor is, than just the mash bill. That's the easy thing for the common bourbon drinker to latch onto, because that's fairly easy to understand. But yeast and fermentation and distillation techniques and cuts and all of those things they get a lot more technical, but all of that plays into the flavor profile over and above just whatever the mash bill may be.
mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
me as a know nothing just said that, but our distillers that are here, is that on track or is that off?
No, it's completely on track. I mean, you have to kind of look at it as a grand chili cook-off, right? We can all be handed the same recipe and the same ingredients, and no one's chili is going to taste the same, right? There's just so many possibilities out there. Yeah, everything you said is accurate.
Yeah, I can't one up what she said, so I'm going to let it go.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on wheat whiskey or anything that we tasted tonight that we've talked about that you want to go back and any other closing comments on anything?
Mike, how's the blend?
The blend. Oh yeah. So we always, for anyone who doesn't know, that on my whiskey den, anything that we've tasted, if we do 4 in a night, we'll do a blend at the end of the night of all of those. So I did a blend of the 5. It was good. It was not. It didn't stand out above any individual whiskey. I'd say that the Brooklyn would have killed the blend if you did the 2 of them side by side. But the blend was nice. It's gone. so there's that.
Well, good statement for it.
Yeah.
Kevin's got more at his house, so here's something Kevin could potentially try, and Lisa can throw in on this if she thinks I'm off on it or whatever. But I bet if you took that first really super funky thing that we had and you made that 50% of your blend, and then you built off of it with the 2 really good ones, you'd have something pretty interesting.
I can do that.
Yeah.
We can try that. Absolutely.
I did save some of B because I'm going to try it against my Snuppy's bottle, and I'm going to see if there's a difference between the 2 of it, because I feel like absolute. I feel like
promise
shit.
that's what it is. So no, and in all honesty,
Hitting one after
I've liked all of these. I enjoyed them all, and some more than others. But I enjoyed all of these, and the Stumpies is one of my favorites from the year. Now, some of that may be the historic significance that it is to the Stumpies distillery,
right,
being their first bottle in bond. But I think it's fantastic, and the dry fly.
Intriguing.
The fact that Don Poffenroth says that he never distilled a drop of whiskey till he built a distillery, that's crazy,
right?
But especially when you have something and like this, and you have somebody like Lisa saying that's an incredibly clean distillation. So he's a fast learner, apparently. But,
Well, I'll even say this because I don't think many distillers say it very often. I bet Lisa will agree with it too. So I loved Adam Stump's stuff whenever we were on the show together. Absolutely loved it, right? And
right.
as a friend, I feel bad saying what I did about the whiskey, but I was being honest, right? And let that serve as truth and proof that distillers don't always know what the fuck they're talking about.
Absolutely.
So,
And then, when you send here we go back to the jawbreakers, if you hadn't sent these, I wouldn't have eaten a lot before we,
Okay. Again, it's my fault. I understand.
Yeah. I'm really grateful I got invited to this particular tasting.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And I have one more question, if you guys will indulge me for just a minute. As the proofs got higher, the comments on them seem to get more positive. Is that coincidence, or is there something to that with a wheat whiskey needing a higher proof to really stand out?
That's an excellent question.
I think there may be some merit there. What I will say I think is interesting. So Steve has been in a lot of judging, and Lisa's a distiller, and I'm a distiller. The other thing I would say that might discount that a little bit is there were faults that we could find in fermentation and distillation, however, though, too, right? So with those earlier ones, so it's kind of hard to say, I think. But I think in general, I mean, when you're dealing with a lot of people who drank quite a bit of alcohol, I think, and throughout the group, probably we're gonna like higher proofs in general, is my guess. But
I think they did, but also I think this more so maybe than other places, you felt the heat at that proof. Like there's other times where you'll have corn and other stuff, you'll be under, you'll think it's 50 or 45, and they're like, oh no, it's 65, and you're like, well, that's why I'm buzzed right now. That's not the way it felt here. You could kind of feel kind of the temperature level where you were at. You're like, well, I think we're in the 50s or maybe even the 60s range with some of the ones when you hit them, and I think that might have been a little more telling. Like, yes, it had more flavor, but also you could tell it had more heat with it.
Yeah.
There's no questionability of whether or not you would call Uber if you could just find the app.
Lisa, any thoughts on that point?
No.
She doesn't like Uber. She's a Lyft person.
Ellen called me and said, I don't know where I am.
That's a true story.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Hey,
my goodness.
Hey, I had a friend that drank too much Bookers. And
that's easy to do. Yeah.
He did, and he called us for help to finding him back to his hotel in New York. So we found him his route back to his hotel in New York after he was out from Canada and across the U.S.
Mine was absent and in Trashville, and I still don't know how I got back to the hotel. I couldn't begin to tell you. It didn't involve driving.
No, it did not.
Apparently, I walked there.
Yeah, we were both lost on foot, but not together. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight.
Don't tell my children. I know.
Don't tell your children.
Steve knows my kids very well.
I know. I spent a little time with your daughter. Well, your one daughter last week, 2 weeks ago. I won't tell, I promise.
All right. We're gonna start wrapping up here.
Real quick, Kevin, one more thing.
Yep.
I just wanted to say thank you for setting this whole thing up and sending out the samples. And honestly, this was just me, myself as a distiller. This was worthwhile as a learning experience to see what's out there.
Yeah, this was phenomenal. So,
yeah.
Thank you. And I hope that everybody gets understands that the point behind the blind tasting is not to create any kind of, hey, gotcha. It's let's taste it for really what it is without any bias whatsoever, and see where we go. And then let's talk about this wheat whiskey segment and what it means to the future of whiskey and distillation.
That's the way it should be.
That was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
well done.
Thank you. So we're and I appreciate everybody being on here. I appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. If you enjoyed it, leave us a comment. Let us know. Share it with friends. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on the Facebook page. We're going to be doing another one of these sometime in the fourth quarter. We got this one just in under the wire for the third quarter. We'll try to do a little bit better for the fourth quarter and maybe get it before New Year's Eve. I don't know.
I was gonna say a New Year's show.
That's we've done that before. So anyway, before we sign off, I want to give everybody a chance to tell the audience where they can find them on social media. And Lisa, once again, we'll start with you.
LB Wicker on Instagram, and Lisa Roper Wicker on Facebook, which I don't post on anymore very often. And obviously Widow Jane on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you. Alan Bishop.
SpiritsofFrenchlick.com. I've got all the social media stuff, but none of it memorized. TheAlchemistCabinet.com, TheAlchemistCabinet.wordpress.com, Distillers Talk Podcast, and If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything podcast.
That's a lot.
There's more, and I'm not putting it in there because it's pointless.
You're a busy guy.
You can find me. You find me if you want to find me. Shut him up already.
Patrick, how about you?
You can find my Whiskey Den on YouTube and on Facebook primarily. We're also on Instagram and very rarely on Twitter, just to be honest.
Very rarely on Twitter. That's probably a smart move. Steve.
On Instagram, Steve Coomes, all one word, lowercase. SteveCoomes.com is my website with my blog, and I'm way behind on that because paying clients are way heavy right now. So I'm not writing for fun right now.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Facebook, Steve Coomes, and Twitter is an odd one. Word Chew. My official business is Words to Chew On.
Mm-hmm.
When I focus so much on food writing, but now it's been Word Chew forever, and I don't guess I'll change it. So there you go.
Mike.
Patrick took all mine. My Whiskey Den's probably the best place to find me because everything else, I'm not a social media person.
Okay. You're on Instagram. You're the Whiskey Dad. Okay.
Yes,
right.
But I'm not very good at it.
All right.
It's actually Twitter. I hate everyone.
That's all of Twitter.
And there's the shadow ban.
Yeah.
Right. Twitter kind of rhymes with sewer.
Right. As for me, check us out on Bourbon Turntable. We have a Facebook group where you can go in and you can post what you're drinking, what you're listening to, and what you're listening to while you're drinking. We have a YouTube channel. We actually had a show that dropped today with Brian Hara. We talked about bourbon justice. We talked about some music lawsuits and stuff as well. That was a lot of fun. You can find us on your favorite podcast platforms as well. We are the show that blends the love of whiskey with the love of music. So thank you, everyone. And I really do appreciate the panel and the time that you gave us tonight. And hopefully we can do something like this again real soon.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sign me up.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll do apple brandy.
We could do.
We have brandy month coming up. You just calm down.
Yeah.
I got a brandy for you to try, Alan Bishop. I got a brandy for you to try. So I'll see you in a couple weeks. So, all right. Until next time. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.